Okay, so let's start with a little mental game here.
All right, I'm in.
I want you to picture a modern global organization.
Yeah.
This thing has resources that are, I mean, honestly unprecedented in human history.
Okay.
We're talking immense wealth, cutting-edge tech, instant global connectivity. Its workforce is scattered into basically every corner of the planet.
Sounds like a logistical dream. Like a tech giant or some massive NGO.
You'd think so, right?
Right.
I mean, on paper, they have every single tool they need to finish their core objective.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the catch. Despite all that access, all those resources, there's this massive chunk of their target audience. We're talking billions of people
Yeah.
who have absolutely zero access to what they're offering.
And not just haven't bought it yet, but literally can't get it.
Exactly.
Which, in the business world, that would be a catastrophic failure of management. If Amazon had the goods but just stopped delivering to half the world, shareholders would revolt.
Precisely. But we aren't talking about Amazon or Google today. We're talking about the modern church and that paradox. Unprecedented resources versus unfinished business. That's the jumping off point for today's deep dive.
Yeah.
We're unpacking a book called Sent Beyond Comfort, Until Every Nation Rejoices by Chris R. Villasis.
And this isn't just some, theological treatise written from a safe university office. Villasis is a missionary pastor. He served in the Philippines for over 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
He calls this book a strategic roadmap, and honestly, after reading it, that feels right. It's less of a sermon and more of a battle plan.
It really did feel that way.
Yeah.
And he comes out swinging with a pretty provocative thesis right from the start. You'd expect a missionary to say the biggest threat to the church is, I don't know, persecution.
Or the rise of aggressive secularism, maybe.
Or moral decline. Those are the usual suspects we always hear about.
Right.
But he says, no, it's none of those. He argues the single greatest threat to the global mission of the church today is comfort.
Which is so counterintuitive,
Yeah.
because we usually see comfort as like a sign of God's blessing. If things are peaceful, bills are paid, the AC is working, the coffee's good, we think, hey, we must be doing it right.
And that's the tension we really need to unpack today.
Yeah.
Villasis argues that while persecution tends to purify, the church, historically speaking, comfort creates something he calls functional disobedience.
That is a sticky phrase.
It is. What does he mean by that?
It's a really devastating concept when you dig in. Functional disobedience means we aren't standing up, shaking our fists at the sky saying, no, God, we won't go.
Right. It's not an open rebellion.
No, we're not intellectually rejecting the mission. We organize our lives in a way that makes the mission impossible. We affirm the theology of the Great Commission, but then we structure our lives around safety, security, and local permanence.
It's a drift, not a decision.
Exactly. A drift. And that's why it's so dangerous. Comfort doesn't announce itself as an enemy. It disguises itself as wisdom.
How so?
Well, it sounds like we need to be prudent with our retirement accounts, or we need to focus on our local community first.
We have to make sure our building is sustainable for the next generation.
Yes. And to play devil's advocate for a second, those aren't bad things.
No, of course not. Prudence is a virtue. Caring for your community is biblical.
They're good things. But Villasis argues they become functional disobedience when they become the primary lens through which we view success. He points out the modern church has learned to measure success almost exclusively by gathering.
A parking lot metric.
Right. If the parking lot is full, if the budget is in the black, if the building program's on schedule, we assume the mission is succeeding. We look at attendance numbers and say, look at the harvest.
But Villasis is saying that's a false metric.
He's saying it's an incomplete metric that's basically become a false idol. He says we've redefined faithfulness as proximity.
Proximity.
Yeah, as long as we're close to the familiar structures, showing up on Sundays, joining a small group, volunteering, we feel faithful. But biblically, faithfulness is rarely about settling down. It's almost always about movement.
It's about obedience. And obedience often means crossing boundaries, not staying inside them.
Exactly. And that leads to the central problem he calls the gospel gap.
I think for a lot of us, especially in the West, this might be hard to visualize because we are just drowning in Christian content.
We're saturated, and that's why his distinction between proximity and access is so critical. Here in the West, we have high proximity. You can't drive 5 miles in the American South without passing a church.
I can get a sermon on my phone in 10 seconds. I can choose from like 10,000 of them.
Exactly. But that is proximity. Villasis contrasts that with access. There are billions of people who live in what missiologists call the 1040 window.
That rectangular area of North Africa, the Middle East, Asia.
Right, where there is no church, no Bible in their language, no Christian neighbor to even explain the message.
So it's not that they've heard and rejected it.
No, they literally cannot hear it.
That's the gap.
That's the gap. And the crisis, the comfort crisis, is that the church often mistakes all the activity in the proximity zones for global progress. We feel busy. We have 3 services. We have a youth retreat. We're exhausted from church work.
So we assume the job is getting done.
But we're just churning the same water. We are quite literally preaching to the choir while the rest of the world has never even heard the song.
Wow.
Villasis has this line that just stopped me cold. He implies that no one has the right to hear the gospel twice while there is someone who has not heard it once.
Wow. That really reframes the issue, doesn't it? It stops being about logistics and starts being about ethics.
It's a question of justice. We are tweaking the message for the 100th time for people who already know it while hoarding access from those who are starving for it.
Okay, so if the diagnosis is we're too comfortable, too focused on gathering and suffering from this proximity illusion, what's the cure? Because I assume it's not just feel guilty and write a bigger check.
No, and thankfully, Villasis goes much deeper than guilt. He goes to theology. He argues we have a fundamental misunderstanding of who God is. We tend to view missions as a department in the church.
Sure, like the worship department or the kids ministry. It's a line item in the budget. Global outreach gets 10% if it's lucky.
Right. But Villasis argues that mission isn't something the church does. It's who the church is. He uses that Latin term,
Missio Dei.
the mission of God. Exactly. Mission is the very nature of God. If you trace the biblical narrative, which the book does brilliantly, you see ascending God from page 1.
He pursues Adam in the garden.
He calls Abraham in Genesis 12. But, and this is key, why does he call Abraham?
And bless him, to make him a great nation.
Yes, but that's the means, not the end. He blesses Abraham so that in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed.
So the blessing was never meant to stop with Abraham.
Never. It was always meant to go through him. It's a pipeline, not a bucket. To be chosen meant to be a conduit. Israel was meant to be a priestly nation, a display case for God to the world. But the ultimate example, the one that really drives this home, is the Incarnation.
Jesus himself.
Yeah, think about the Incarnation through the lens of comfort. Jesus had the ultimate comfort, the perfection of heaven. And he left it. He didn't just send a message from the clouds. He moved into the neighborhood. He suffered.
And Villasis quotes John 20.21 here, right? As the Father has sent me, even so I am sending you.
That verse is the hinge pin for the whole argument. If our identity is in Christ, and Christ is the sent one, then to be a Christian is to be sent. There's no version of discipleship that is stationary.
That's a huge challenge to how we usually think about discipleship. We see it as education. I go to Bible study, I learn some Greek words, I memorize verses.
And I become a deeper Christian.
Right?
And those are good things. We need biblical literacy. But Villasis says if discipleship stops at information, it's not discipleship. It's just academics.
True discipleship has to lead to deployment.
Yes. A disciple who is filled with knowledge but never sent out to use it is a contradiction. It's unfinished obedience.
Okay, I want to double-click on that phrase, unfinished obedience, because it connects it to the logic of Romans 10. This was one of the clearest parts of the book for me.
It's Paul's logic, and it's ironclad. Paul asks this series of rhetorical questions in Romans 10.
Right, okay, so how can they call on the one they haven't believed in?
Exactly. And then how can they believe in the one they haven't heard?
Okay, and how can they hear without a preacher?
And
there's the kicker.
How can anyone preach unless they are sent? It's a supply chain.
It is. And Villasis points out the chain almost always breaks at that sending link.
We have the believers. We have the potential preachers. We just lack the sending. We don't deny the Great Commission. We just postpone it.
We'll send someone when we have surplus funds, or we'll send someone after we finish the building project.
Exactly. And meanwhile, the hearing can't happen, so the believing can't happen. The whole chain collapses because of us.
That is functional disobedience. We break the chain because we prioritize our local stability over the global supply line. Okay, so let's get practical. Because I imagine someone's listening to this thinking, I have a mortgage, I have kids in school, I'm not a pastor. Am I supposed to just sell everything and move to a remote island?
And Villasis is really clear on this. Not everyone is called to be a goer in the geographic sense. If everyone left, there'd be no one to send them.
Good point.
But he argues that everyone is called to participate. He elevates the role of sender to be equal with the role of goer.
Equal. That feels like a stretch for some people. We tend to see missionaries as the varsity team, the spiritual Navy SEALs, and the senders are just, the support crew back home.
That's the cultural hierarchy we've built, but it's not biblical. Villasis points to the Antioch model in Acts 13. This is the paradigm shifter.
Walk us through that.
So the church in Antioch is thriving. It's the first real mega church in a way. They have incredible leadership. They're fasting, praying. And the Holy Spirit says, "Set apart for me Barnabas and Saul for the work to which I have called them."
Paul and Barnabas.
They're heavy hitters. They were the top tier, the theologians, the teachers, the founders. If a modern church consultant saw that, they would scream. They'd say, "Do not send these guys. You need them here. Send the interns. Send the guys who aren't quite working out."
Send the junior staff.
Right. But Antioch sent their best. And this is the key takeaway. Villasis just hammers home. True sending requires shared sacrifice. It disrupts local comfort for global gain.
So if sending doesn't hurt a little, if it doesn't cost the local church something in talent or money or leadership,
then it probably isn't true sending. It's just tipping.
Just tipping. Oof, that stings.
Right.
It completely changes the scorecard for church leadership.
It has to. Churches need to stop measuring how many people fill the room and start measuring how many are released into the world. Villasis asks some really confronting questions for leaders.
Like, are our structures designed for comfort or obedience? And do our budgets reflect global priorities?
That section on budgets is a real reality check. If 98% of a church's budget stays within the four walls, for the AC, the staff, the coffee, for the benefit of people already there, can we really claim to be a sent church?
It suggests we're a gathered club, not a sent army.
And that's where the comfort crisis is most visible. It's in the Excel spreadsheets we spend on ourselves.
But the book doesn't just leave us feeling guilty about our budgets. It pivots to a vision of the future that's actually really hopeful. He takes us to the end of the book, to Revelation 7.
And this is so crucial, because if you operate just out of guilt, I have to do this because the need is so big,
You'll burn out.
you'll absolutely burn out. The need is just, it's overwhelming. But Villasis flips the motivation. We don't do mission work because we're guilty. We do it because we know how the story ends.
The spoiler alert.
Revelation 7.9. John sees a multitude no one can count, from every nation, tribe, people, and language, standing before the throne.
So the victory is already assured. It's not a maybe.
It's a done deal. We aren't fighting for victory. We are fighting from victory. The outcome is guaranteed. There will be people from every tribe. So when we go to a difficult place or send money to a hard-to-reach area, we aren't gambling.
We're investing in a certain future.
Exactly.
That brings a lot of patience into it, doesn't it? Because we live in such an instant gratification culture. We want results this quarter.
We want the harvest now. But Villasis talks about the tension between the urgency of the unreached and the patience required for this work. Real fruit, especially in places where the gospel has never been, often requires years of obscurity.
It requires suffering. It requires burying seeds you might not see sprout for a decade.
And comfort-addicted people are bad at waiting.
We're terrible at it. We want the Revelation 7 party without the Acts 13 sacrifice. The crown without the cross.
But the book reminds us that a cruciform mission, a mission shaped by the cross, is the only kind that works. You can't bypass suffering to get to glory.
So where does this leave us? We've talked about the problem, the theology, the logic, the vision. But what does this mean for the person listening right now, sitting in traffic? How do they actually change?
Well, Villasis has this idea of an actionable to-do list, but it's really an audit. He challenges you to audit 3 areas of your life: career, location, and finances.
Okay, let's break those down. Career. That seems like a big ask.
It is, but it changes your perspective.
Yeah.
The comfort script is pick the job that pays the most, offers the most security, lets you retire earliest.
Right.
The sent script asks, can I use my skills in a location where the gospel isn't known? Can I be a teacher, an engineer, a business owner in the 1040 window?
Using your job as the vehicle.
Exactly. Or if I stay here, am I climbing the ladder for ego, or am I positioning myself to fund the mission aggressively? Am I working to gather or working to send?
And that flows right into location.
This is the one that hits home. We choose where we live based on school districts, property values, safety. Villasis asks, what if you chose your zip code based on missional opportunity?
What if you moved into a neighborhood that needs light instead of a gated community that isolates you?
That is radically countercultural. That's moving away from comfort on purpose.
It is. And finally, finances.
This goes back to the budget, but on a personal level. Are we saving for a retirement that is just excessive, buying toys we don't need, or are we fueling the sending engine? He talks about capping your lifestyle.
Right. As your income goes up, don't raise your standard of living, raise your standard of giving.
Yes. Just because you can afford more comfort doesn't mean you should buy it.
It all comes back to that functional disobedience. We can believe all the right things, but if our calendar and our checkbook look exactly like everyone else's, we're misaligned.
We're secular materialists with a Jesus sticker on top. Villasis is inviting us to break that mold, to trade the safety of the gathering for the joy of the harvest.
And he makes a point that this trade-off creates joy. This isn't a miserable life.
No, that's the paradox, right? Comfort promises happiness, but often delivers boredom and anxiety. Mission promises difficulty, but delivers deep, abiding joy.
It's the difference between being entertained and being fulfilled.
Exactly. There's no joy, like knowing your life is connected to God's eternal purpose.
Here's something to think about as you go about your week. We talked about that chain in Romans 10. Belief requires hearing. Hearing requires preaching. Preaching requires sending. If that chain is broken, the gospel stops with you. It dead ends in your comfort zone.
But if you participate by going or by sacrificially sending, you become the link. You bridge the gap.
And that legacy is worth infinitely more than a slightly nicer car or a slightly safer zip code.
Absolutely. It's the difference between a life that fades and a life that echoes into eternity.
A powerful challenge to leave us with. Thanks for walking us through this roadmap today.
My pleasure. It's a book that really stays with you.
And for our listeners, thanks for diving deep. Until next time, keep asking the hard questions. And maybe, just maybe, step a little bit outside of your comfort zone.